Hey, I'm Bradley Denniston. I'm going to be breaking down my reggaeton vocal chain to get you guys a really modern reggaeton vocal sound. If you're not subscribed to the Waves channel, definitely hit that sub button. You're going to be missing out if you don't. There's some great content coming from some amazing creators, so I don't want you to miss that stuff. Now let's dive in. I'm going to start by playing a section of the song, and then I'm going to break down everything that I'm doing for this vocal.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado.
First plugin I have is the C6, and the C6 is a magical multi-band compressor. I love this thing. I use it all the time because it has the floating bands. And this floating band up here I'm using for DeEssing. And that's something that I actually learned from Jason Joshua, because he would use the top band for DeEssing and the bottom band for any resonant frequencies in the vocal. And I thought that was really, really cool when I saw him do that. So I stole that from him. And then I'm using the second band here to just take down just a little bit of this kind of chubby area. Kind of ruins intelligibility a lot of the times in a vocal. You notice the floating band at the top is also taking care of things that start to sound a little too consonant. Of course, Waves Tune Real Time, a really, really cool plugin for modern reggaeton. You can be a really good singer, but you still want that kind of gloss and that pop polish. So let's put this in and out. The vocal is tuned, you can hear it, but this is just giving it a little bit more of that and a little bit of that sound of what Waves Tune Real Time is. The third plugin I have here is the Vocal Rider, and I don't want to always get the artifacts of what a compressor would do, but this allows me to keep the vocal up in your face without any of the artifacts of what a compressor might do in the pumping phase. So we set this so that I have a range where if anything goes crazy, I have this target. I want to kind of duck that stuff that gets a little too loud, and anything that's too soft, I bring it up. This is what it sounds like bypassed in and out.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado.
Massive difference. You have that vocal really loud and proud and star power in your face, or you have it kind of held back and sounding a little too dynamic for a modern reggaeton sound. So that's why I'm using the Vocal Rider. Now, CLA 2A versus the CLA 3A. I want to explain. The CLA 2A is a tube compressor, and that tube gives it kind of a spitty harmonic tone. It's also slower on the attack than the CLA 3A. And the reason being is because the CLA 3A is a solid state compressor. It does not have a tube in it, and it is just faster. And if you want a really smooth vocal and you're looking for less of the kind of peaky sound and the harmonics at the top mids, then shoot for the CLA 3A. Right now I have the CLA 2A on because I like the spit of it and the tube of it. If you're going for smooth, go CLA 3A. Check it out.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado.
Now, next plugin in is the SSL EV2 channel, one of my favorite channels ever made. I'm using just a little bit of this mic drive at 0.8. This is a really colorful mic preamp drive. I want to jack this up so you can really hear the color of the harmonics on this.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado.
Probably sounds better than an actual SSL console because I've driven SSL console mic pre's. They don't sound that good. This like has a really nice solid state distortion that is just really musical and beautiful. So I'm doing also just very, very light compression on this at 1.8 to 1 on the compressor. And this is hitting about 3 dB of compression. Actually a lot of EQ here. So 14K, 15K here. I'm boosting up about 4.3. Then I have the 7K, and that's the spit right there and that cut at 1.7. I'm widening up the Q a little bit. I'm cutting just a touch of 750, and 750 got kind of problematic in this voice for certain words, so I just kind of took that down. And this really warm area of 111, I'm pushing that just up by 2.5 on a bell. So this is really cool too. On this plugin, you can hit this speaker and you can solo these out. So I'll just kind of click on these so you can hear all the frequencies that I'm really hitting on the vocal.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy
And I usually use the brown EQ for vocals. Now, last plugin in this chain is something that I just started doing recently, is using this silk vocal, taking up the high band with the dip here. And this kind of gives me just really, really nice DeEssing. DeEssing I don't have to think about. And I'm doing very, very little on the low end just to hit anything that like peaks. It'll just barely take it down. But watch what happens for the DeEssing at the top.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi...
It's literally catching only the problematic things at the top. I'm gonna bypass this in and out so you can hear what happens to that S.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi... ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado.
Very, very transparent DeEssing. This brings me to our vocal mix bus. I have quite a bit on the vocal mix bus, but it's all very, very much gluing and taking care of problems or anything that builds up from using these plugins, right? So I have the F6 RTA, which is going to give you the dynamic EQing. I'm doing some dynamic EQing here at 295, shaving everything out from 118 and above. I'm just high passing. And then at 2 here, I have that 680 area. On the 6 band, I'm doing some top spit on the top, like top. I'm doing the SSL Comp. This is kind of my secret weapon on the vocal mix bus for a really smooth punching vocal. Also, if you want, you can use the sidechain filter on the new V15 of this plugin here, which will allow you to not trigger the compressor as much with the low voltage information and let the compressor here just 500 and above or anything between 500 and 0. The trick here is to blend this in. I'm doing parallel compression here. So I'm gonna try and hit 5 dB or so on overs, on peaks, and then I'm using this also for some gain. So you can see 7.5, 7.8 there, and that's going to be gaining it up. And then the release, I like it pretty fast because it keeps the vocal open, and this is a pretty fast track. Ptech EQ P1A, classic Ptech style EQ that just sounds amazing, pushes the mids, and gives more 3-dimension just turning it on. And I use 30 hertz, and a lot of people are like, why use 30 hertz? There's no 30 hertz in a vocal. The Ptech is its own little beast, right? It actually boosts quite a bit of the harmonics and the octaves above 30.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado.
You don't hear it, you just feel it go like, you know, it just gets beefy. Now, last plugin on the vocal mix bus, I find this plugin just to be really cool because I use it for one thing. I use it for this glue, and you can see it's at 1.2. And this is kind of like, I'd imagine an SSL style compression, but it is perfect for taking the vocal back down into the mix. Let me explain here, okay? I'm gonna take the glue to 0. You're gonna hear the vocal kind of jump forward. The more I bring the glue up, the vocal is gonna get tucked back further because you're compressing the vocal more. Let's be real. But it's doing it in such a musical way that it doesn't sound like compression to me. It just feels like you're taking the vocal from the front to the back and placing it from front to back in your panning. So check it out.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado. ¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado.
How magic is that? It just sets it into the mix. It's your front to back panner. Now, last but not least, we have to talk about the sweetening and all the effects that are going on this vocal. The first thing I have is the fattening channel. It thickens out the middle of the vocal, and the chain goes like this. We have the R comp compressing. We got the doubler 2, which is killing the middle channel and just bringing up the sides. We have the Q4 doing some shaping. Then the S1 imager spreading it just a little bit wider. I'm gonna bypass it in and out.
Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado.
Next up, the singverb, which is the Manny Marquine reverb. I try to use these things as EQ on returns. So this is giving me a little bit more brightness in the sides. It's killing the mids so that the mids don't clog up that vocal because the vocal's already taking up so much of the mids. And I'm boosting the highs, a little bit of the lows. And on the large setting, I want this to be like 4 seconds, 5 seconds long. And I just want it to be open the whole time, creating space around the vocal. I'm also using using some compression here to compress that reverb and bring up the low level information. And always I use pre-delay on reverbs because I want them to be heard after the vocal hits, right? So the vocal hits and the reverb's behind, and it detaches from it so you can hear the reverb better. Sounds like this.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado.
And the secret sauce here, of course, you always need secret sauce. This has got the delay throw on it, and that delay throw is highly designed. I love the super taps because I can detach the delays from the signal. So it's not the vocal hitting with the delay overlapping on it. I can move it across the grid and say, hold on, give it a quarter note before the delay comes in, which allows that like later delay to happen and you can hear it better. The next part of the chain, I have a compressor, Comp, which is just gonna bring the delays up in the low level information so you can really hear those delays. The REQ filtering out everything so that we just focus on the mid-range of those delays, which gives me a real vibe. And then this plugin right here, which is really dope, is the retrofi. And the retrofi just gives you that kind of retro sound. It's like distortion, filtering, and then I also use the reverb on this and the echo on this. And the echo is set to slap. I'm just doing the end of the phrase here. So check this out.
¿Quién te dijo que yo estoy virado? Esa nena con la combi a mi lado. Un diamante, una mente bien minado. Gucci, Louis, Fendi, ando bien tirado.
Just makes that vocal dance. And that's it. That's my modern reggaeton vocal decoded. You got everything. You got my whole strip. You got my vocal mix bus. You got my delay throws, my reverbs, everything. So I hope you guys got a lot out of this video. And if you did, please share the show, drop a comment, question, whatever, and like the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.